Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Moulton, the Senior Director of Public Sector Services for WM, and I have the pleasure of facilitating a panel today that's about leveraging technology and optimizing our systems to address challenges such as labor, inflation, recycling contamination. So I'll hand it over to Frank, who is going to introduce himself and just tell us a little bit about his history at WM.
Morning, everybody. I'm Frank Philo. I'm the Area Vice President of the Upper Midwest area for WM. I've been with the company for 33 years. I started when I was 12. No, I'm joking, but I've been in the industry a long time. The Upper Midwest area, just to give you guys an idea, WM's broken down into 16 areas across North America. So the Upper Midwest is Wisconsin, Minnesota, UP of Michigan, North and South Dakota, and Northern Iowa. So I'm responsible for all the operations across those six states. So with me today is Shelly and Mike. They're part of my area leadership team.
I spent some time in government, and I've been with WM for about 12 years, both on the corporate side of the organization, and then for the past couple of years here supporting the Upper Midwest from an HR perspective. So glad to be with all of you this morning.
Hi, I'm Mike Mills. I'm the area general manager for the Upper Midwest, so covering the same region as Frank. I've been with WM for 2.5 years. My primary responsibilities are around collection operations, sales, public sector sales, and safety. Prior to my time with WM, I came from outside the industry, so I spent 22 years in various operational roles with GE.
Okay, great. So today we're going to talk about three key topics. Those are optimization, people, and customer service. So we'll start with optimization. Frank, first question to you. How has WM leveraged automation and technology to increase efficiencies?
Sure. I guess like many industries, right, technology continues to evolve, and WM continues to try to evolve and stay ahead of that. So when you think about the use of technology, we've really done it in many facets of our business. So if you think about our landfills, for example, these are engineered facilities. Water, but we've really taken it one step further as we continue to convert our landfills into what we call a connected landfill. So the connected landfills will use technology to make systems, infrastructure systems, such as our wastewater collection, our leachate collection systems, our gas systems, our wastewater plants at certain locations, all connected so that our landfill technicians can access those systems remotely. So not only can they see the system and how it's operating, and in some cases troubleshoot those systems, but we can also collect data to understand trending. So we can see when there's a pump in a sump at a landfill that appears to be failing, that we can be preemptive about replacing those pumps and optimizing those systems. So the recycling operations, that's the one that most people have heard the most about, right? It's been in a lot of our earnings releases, and we've talked about the investment that we're making in our recycling plant. You know, WM has committed a lot of money to automation of those recycling facilities and increasing technologies. Right here in the Twin Cities, we have a project that'll start late first quarter, early second quarter next year. It's about a $29 million investment in our Twin Cities MRF that'll increase or improve the technology, modernize that facility, and increase the automation in that. Lastly, I'd speak to our collection operations. Like many of you, we've moved to automation in our residential line of business, carted, automated service. But we've also sort of taken that one step further with our smart truck technology. So, and Mike's going to talk probably more about the smart truck later, but our smart trucks have onboard computers. So a guy that's been around for 33 years, right? We didn't have computers in our truck and also monitoring the driver interaction and what's going on, so we can tell when a driver is maybe backing too often or when he's maybe taking too long at a customer location, and either coach that driver or find out, what is going on to correct that. We also have technology on the truck now that will help to identify contamination in bins and overages. So as they dump the container, we can see that garden hose that none of us want going through our recycling facility is in that bin, and then we can use that to better educate the customers to continue to clean up that recycling. And then finally, I would mention just the safety features of the truck. And also just helps to identify continuous issues that may be out there on the street.
Thanks. Mike, I'm going to ask you a question. Scott was just talking about a lot of the increased costs that our industry
Recording in
has
progress.
experienced over the last couple of years, high inflation. How is some of the technology that Frank has talked about, how does that impact the cost structure?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the big things for us is, the perfect world on automation. A lot of the things that Frank talked about is, how do we, not only use it to drive cost out, but also, for instance, to improve safety. And so, when you have those things that go together, that's really the sweet spot that we're looking for. So, we've seen big benefits, both in terms of cost. I mean, it's no secret that the driver pool has been difficult to fill. And so, a lot of the automation, we talked about side load trucks, any opportunity that we have to keep the drivers in the cab of the truck. Whether that's the employees, the drivers, or the community at large, that's our mission. And, a lot of the automation really plays into that as well.
Thank you. Shelley, I'm going to turn it to you. As a people leader, employees are, our top priority. How has automation and technology impacted people?
Yeah, so there's been a huge impact there. When I started my career in HR, I remember we would post a job and there would literally be hundreds of candidates. Folks would pop in, they'd be wrapping around the block to try to get to you because there was a market where folks wanted a job and we had jobs and they wanted to come and get them. And as probably most of you in this room, if not all of you in this room know, we're no longer in that world, right? There is a smaller candidate pool. Everybody is competing for those candidates and wants experienced folks, and so it's a very challenging market out right now. So from an automation perspective, it's automating things that are hard for us to find people who want to do those jobs, right? The physicality that's involved in picking up yard waste all day, or constantly throwing as a helper in the back. That's something that can be very taxing that somebody may not want to do or may not want to do for a long period of time. And similarly, in our recycling facilities, we see a lot of folks who don't want to come and sort all day, right? That's, again, can be very physically taxing. So from an automation perspective, it helps us automate some of those tasks and roles that folks don't want to do or physically are challenged to do, and helps us target jobs where it's a higher skill job, a higher pay job, where there's a bit more of a market for, and where we can also kind of bring employees in and train them up and teach them the industry. So for us, it's helped from a recruiting perspective, but also from a retention perspective and a career pathing perspective. It's allowed folks to get into those more desirable roles that they want to be in.
We've invested a lot in customer service technology to better serve our customers, reduce the cost to serve. Can you tell us a little bit about those investments?
Yeah, sure. So, one of the biggest things that we've realized is, we talked a lot about generational differences, and, there is a pretty wide variety of how people want to interact from a customer service perspective. Like me personally, like if it's not on my phone, if I can't just go online and do it myself, I don't want to call and talk to somebody. So how we translate that to the waste industry is really intriguing, right? We talk about, for airline tickets, like I want to go and I want to pick my seat, I don't want to have to call somebody and say, hey, can I sit in an exit row or whatever because I have long legs. But so we try to tailor that a bit. And again, I feel like I've brought this up in a couple of different areas, but some of those jobs are again hard to fill, hard to keep people in, or we'll get people trained and they'll kind of jump from one company to another. And so having self-service options like you can go online and you can see your bill, you can pay your bill online, you can, if there's any discrepancies, you can use a chat feature, or we'll have a contact back feature, so that people can do that. We also do have the phone option, right? There are people who still want to pick up the phone and have that call. So we've been able to reduce our reliance on labor, while also giving people the experiences that they want to have. Our with a again reduced presence of people answering phones, we've still seen a reduction in the amount of wait time in our call centers. So we're down about 25% or so, which means people are using the options that we have available. People are able to resolve their most importantly, they're able to resolve whatever they're coming online for, whether it's signing up for new service or if they need some other help. People are able to get that help in a manner that they want to receive it. And so it's, again, that I've talked about that sweet spot of efficiency, plus utilizing technology, and we see it also in the customer service realm.
Yeah, Mike, I really appreciate what you're saying about choice of channel, but choice of channel, I don't know if it's widely accepted yet in our industry. Shelley, one thing I hear a lot from our communities, well, still, Mrs. A down the street, she wants to talk to someone. She wants to have personalized service. So, what is our approach to address that? Maybe it needs to be a hybrid approach?
Yeah. So we definitely take a hybrid approach to it, because it's not a one size fits all, and it's pretty dependent on what type of request you're looking for. So, for the things where they can be scheduled, it's kind of like, I want to check on this, or I want to look into this. A lot of people are now trained to kind of go and look online, and self-service has some really good examples and some really bad examples, right? Like, you go to the grocery store, like, I don't want to check myself out, right? That's, especially if I have to weigh produce. Like, my kids do want to, but I don't want to mess with weighing my own bananas, right? Like, I want somebody to do that and bag it for me. So for me, that's a bad self-service option. However, I have absolutely no problem ordering from Amazon sometimes several times a week, because it's so darn easy, and I can tell exactly where everything is, and I can tell when it's going to arrive and how many stops away it is. So there are kind of good examples and bad examples, and part of that depends on your behavior and what you're interested in. So what we've tried to do is build up, you can go to our website, you can have an app, you can sign yourself up for text alerts. I love text, right? If it comes to my phone and it arrives via text and I can just look at it and move on with the world, that's great to me. But you have the option to sign up for whatever works best for you. And then from an employee perspective, we're spending less time answering questions about empty and returns and, kind of the basic standard stuff that's just normal course of business that we can all look at online and feel a sense of comfort with. And we're going more to those situations and scenarios where something really funky happens, or there's something more complicated, and making sure that the employees that we have are spooled up and trained and are a higher skilled workforce who are able to be more problem solvers and work through those issues and help resolve the issue, versus just kind of picking up the phone and answering very straightforward basic questions, right? So it's not about eliminating that human interaction and experience. I think it's about saving it for when there is something that is deserving of it. And we all, I laugh when Mike says he doesn't want to talk to someone. I think generationally, I'm in that camp too. I would prefer to go online or text or whatever. But there are times like yesterday where I had to talk to a customer service rep about something, and I was that person saying representative in the phone because it wasn't working through that channel, right? And so we know that when we have those things that are a little bit more complicated, we do want to talk to a human being, but we want that person at the other end of the phone to be somebody who is able to solve our problem and walk through things. And I think in our industry, I mean, there's nothing that can ruin somebody's day quite like their trash not being picked up, right? Like it seems, it seems like something that just happens over a course of time. But like, my gosh, if you don't have your trash picked up, like all kinds of chaos can happen. It can end up all over your yard. It can stink in your garage, right? Like animals can get into it. It's a big deal. So it's important that we do the work right and on time as best as we're able to. But we also have to deal with the fact that there's things like weather, extreme hot, extreme cold, et cetera, that we're all challenged with. So just making sure that we're able to, when there's an issue or a problem, be able to respond to that and react to that and give the customer what they need is the approach that we're taking. Also understanding that kind of habits of customers are changing and they want things differently than they may have 10 or 20 years ago. So really that hybrid approach.
And if I can jump into, just to add on, what Shelley was talking about with, having our customer service, agents solving the more complex problems, we've talked to that group and they feel more value at what they do because they feel like they're out, hey, I'm not just doing the simple stuff or I'm not doing the transactional stuff. I'm helping to solve a customer problem, or I'm helping to sell services, or I'm helping for the for the greater good, and that really helps from a retention standpoint. It helps, that having that value and what I do is important really helps us, and we've seen that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think even from like a net promoter score, right? So a lot of times there's some criticism of like, you're going to have this customer experience and people are pushing buttons or talking to a computer. They're not going to feel as good about the experience. I think, that's something interesting that we've actually found to be the opposite of what you might expect, where the increased automation has actually helped improve the customer service.
Yeah, so we send surveys out to a lot of our customers, and we ask a variety of questions. And one of the questions is, how satisfied are you with your WM experience? Right, it's one simple question, and through a lot of the efforts that we've done around automation and providing other options, we've seen. In some cases, an increase in our net promoter score, which is basically how on a scale of 1 to 10, how are customers answering that survey. So we're seeing more people in the 9s and 10s than we are, at 6 or below. And so if you can get that ratio, it feels like we're moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Mike. Absolutely. I know that I'm not a fan of talking to agents anymore when I call customer service centers. If I have to talk to someone to pay a bill, I'm like, what is wrong? They need to invest in technology. So we just have a few minutes left, and then we'll turn it over to Q&A. But just to wrap up, big picture question, where do you see the waste industry going in terms of continual investments in technology? What is the future of waste management and technology?
I guess I'll start.
It's a big one.
Yeah, right. I would say, boy, we've seen it evolve a lot, right? And it's hard to say where it'll go, but what I'm sure of is the evolution and the integration of technology and really of more of a data-driven business will continue. I said earlier, right, nobody wants to be the next Blockbuster or Kodak of the industry. So, I believe that, it will continue to evolve. And as things, you think about, I think about things like lithium-ion batteries, right? It's a big issue for our industry right now, and we're challenged with that. And when you think about how can we combat that? Well, we can combat that through better education, right? Better education of our customers and in trying to get that word out. But, at WM, we've invested in technology in our recycling facilities and in our transfer stations, and now we're piloting that at our landfills with automated, remote fire monitoring systems through the Fire Rover system, where they monitor the facilities 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can detect sources of heat, and they can, remotely activate spray heads with foam to mitigate fires, or at least control them until emergency services can get there. And I can tell you, just in my experience, I've seen these Fire Rover systems be beneficial in a multitude of different issues where we would have potentially lost entire facilities. So I think that's one example. As the industry continues to change, I think that, the industry has to continue to evolve. So, from a technology standpoint, we're going to have to continue to stay ahead of that.
I would say sustainability and our focus on the environments, the communities, our social impact. I think just the way that the world is, that's increasingly important to people, and people want to make sure that we're leaving the world a better place than we found it. And I think for our industry, the investment in technologies to how do we do that and how do we do that better? How do we reduce waste? How do we process waste? How do we make sure we're doing it in an environmentally friendly way? And how are we making sure that we're making an impact and giving back, right? Like that gives enormous satisfaction, and we're seeing increasingly that is part of what helps drive people and helps motivate people. So I think from an industry standard perspective, especially as you think about, poor Blockbuster and nobody lining up anymore to go rent their VHS for a Friday night, we need to make sure that we're staying on the cutting edge of that technology and that we're able to provide solutions to customers who want them. And even when we think about governments and regulations, like sometimes some of these regulations are very aspirational, and we need to think about the technology and the way of processing these things to actually meet some of those regulatory constraints that we're seeing. So I think really that focus on sustainability and making sure that we're good corporate citizens and good from a social impact perspective is really going to be a focus for us.
So I'll bring it back to the drivers. I mean, I think, as we look at the next 5 to 10 years, there's a pretty big portion of our driver population that's going to be retiring or exiting the industry, and it's how do we continue to attract, bring in drivers? You couple that with how do we use automation to? We've talked a lot about it. How do we use automation to reduce that reliance? I mean, we've also looked at the industry has changed a lot. There's a lot of drivers. You all have probably seen it. We've seen it that they'll work every hour available to them, whether it's a weekend, whether it's late, hey, I'll pick up extra routes, things like that. And there's a newer driver population that comes in and they want to work their 40 hours and have their social life, have their weekends free. And we've worked to balance that by saying it's not a one size fits all. Providing options for flexibility, such as hey, we're going to run residential routes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and give people Fridays off. And people like that. They want to work, 4 10s and have a 3-day weekend. And there's other people who are say, hey, give me every hour you've got, and we'll put them in a roll-off truck. And so, it's just that variety. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be really crucial for all of us to sort of manage that and kind of work through it.
Well, thank you. I think we have a few minutes for Q&A, but I just want to say thank you for sharing all your perspectives and insights. And if you have any other questions that you want to connect with someone offline, just go ahead and shoot me an email. If we can share some of the technologies that we leverage to reduce cost, improve safety, we all win as an industry. So please let me know. And then also Judy, Paulo, thank you so much for the invitation. We really appreciate the partnership that we've had, I think for, Everett, 40 years? 35, 40, okay. 41, okay. So we've been at the table for 41, and we just love MWMA and the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So any questions?
Great job with the panel. Shelley, I have a question for you. You talked about some of the things that you're doing for your employees, and you talked about the fact that the educational program is helpful. And we know, all of us in this industry, how tough it is to get new employees, but it's also equally important to keep the ones you got. What else are you doing within the company to help employees? What are the programs other than the educational programs in terms of things that you're doing to let the employees know how much you appreciate them?
Yeah, so it's really interesting when we ask people questions about engagement. It means different things to different people, right? So for some people, it means like I want that focus on my education, or I want to be able to pay for my kids' education. Like that's the most important thing to me, and that's the way that I feel most engaged. For other people, that sense of belonging and inclusion is critically important to them. So we also have a very large focus. We've rolled out within the last several years impact groups, where folks can join and have an experience where they're able to build networks, able to think about ways in which our company can be more welcoming, can be more open, can be more inclusive. And we found that people really have found a sense of community there. And the old joke that like all HR folks laugh about is like, do you have a best friend at work, right? But that's actually like one of those things that will drive somebody's satisfaction. So is there somebody that they can look up in the organization and say, that person looks like me, that person understands my experience, or sit sideways and have that experience? And so we've realized, we're a traditionally male-dominated industry, but generationally that's changing. And so we definitely have an opportunity to say like, hey, talk to high school girls, like you can drive a truck too, right? Like, why not, right? And so be able to offer more opportunities to more people, and even things like the automation will even open up to a population where maybe there are some physical limitations or challenges where you wouldn't be able to be in and out of a truck, but you certainly can operate a joystick, right? And so we're thinking about, as an organization, how do we make it a great place for everybody to work, not just a certain segment of people to work? And we find that a lot of employees, myself included, feeling like I belong, feeling like I'm respected, feeling like I have a place and a seat at the table and a voice, is a huge driver of employee satisfaction and engagement. And so we've been very focused there from a culture perspective, which is a little bit new for our industry, right? That's not something that I'm sure when I was really out there 14 years ago when I joined the waste industry, but now is definitely something that we're thinking about and talking about a lot. I think some of the other things that we do is make sure that we're very focused on health and total health, right? The pandemic was very challenging for folks, and we saw a huge spike in mental health challenges and concerns, and our folks were out on the front lines still making sure that the trash got picked up and working at the landfills and taking care of everything. So we also have a pretty large commitment to making sure that our employees have resources available to take care of themselves and their mental health and the mental health of their families, and try to destigmatize some of that so that folks can get the help that they need and feel well supported. I think another really cool thing that we have is we call it me time, but it's a very generous time off package. And initially folks are like, oh, you're not going to give me an exact number of days. Like, how do I know how to manage this, right? Like, give me 10 days, I'll figure out how to use my 10 days. And when you throw out there, like, yeah, take your me time, folks are a little bit squirrely, right? But what we found is that has given people permission to say, like, yeah, I'm going to work really hard, and maybe this week I'll work 50, 60 hours, right? But next week, I'm gonna take a day off and go to my kid's game, or I'm going to go camping, or I'm going to do something, and that really helps from a work-life balance perspective make people feel like they can work and do what they need to do and do their job and feel fulfilled and make the money they need to support their family, but then they actually have the time and ability to go do those things with their family that are important to them. So those are a few of the other things that we've been focused on to make sure that this is someplace that people want to join and build their career. Sorry, that was a long answer. I'm super passionate about it.
So I had a question that takes the maximization of the technology that you're already embracing and taking that to the next step as far as recovery. All of us are tasked and challenged with managing society's discards, and Waste Management and others continue to maximize and leverage tech to improve recycling. Looking further upstream to address a growing packaging waste stream, and the need to recycle more, what concerns does Waste Management have with current EPR initiatives around packaging, and where do you see a path forward so we can push the packaging industry to reduce packaging waste and also make it more recyclable so you can recover more? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that's a lot of what we talked about with our sustainability efforts is getting involved upstream. And so, we've got a variety of examples where we've done that. We continue to do that. But yeah, for sure. When you look at kind of the hierarchy of waste and how we deal with it, right? With the best option is eliminating it upfront or making sure that upfront is the right way to do. So I think it's a great question, and I think it's for sure something that as an industry we need to be more involved with.
Well, and I would say when we think about the investment in the technology in our recycling facilities, right, it's really about supporting that circular economy. You know, how can we extract more value from those streams on the front end and then make better products on the back end that can be utilized better at a higher value? You know, it also helps to keep our costs down, right? Because that's important. You just talked about that in the last session, right? How can we keep the cost down of processing that material, and by increasing the automation and the technology, especially in recycling facilities, it'll help to offset those continuous increased costs and extract more value from that stream.
Okay, that's it. Come on, you guys, we gotta get off the stage.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.